All right, today we're diving into a text with a message that's, well, it's not just direct, it's absolute. It's all about power, corruption, and what the author claims is an inescapable cosmic law that governs every single one of us. So let's break down this idea they call karmic debt. So, the source starts off by making one thing crystal clear. It's laying the groundwork, telling you exactly what this message is, and, maybe more importantly, what it isn't. And it immediately follows that up, pushing aside any idea that this is just some angry rant. The author is trying to frame this as something much, much deeper. And boom, there it is. This is the core idea. What we're about to hear isn't an attack, it's not a threat. It's a reminder of a truth the author believes we've all forgotten. So, what exactly is this truth? Okay, so the entire argument hinges on this one massive principle. This idea of an unseen universal law, a law that supposedly governs every single action and its consequence. The source says this is the foundation for everything we're about to unpack. So what is this law? Well, the source gives it a name, karmic debt. The best way to think about it is like a cosmic balance sheet, a universal ledger. Every time someone does something wrong, especially someone with power, it adds a debit to their account. And this is the crucial part. The source argues that this debt always gets paid, no exceptions. And this right here, this is the core of the whole argument. It's presented as an absolute, non-negotiable law. According to this text, it doesn't matter how much power, wealth, or influence you have. Nothing can shield you from this cosmic balancing act. It's a totally impartial system. So, with that framework in mind, the author turns their attention to a very specific group of people. First up, ministers, government officials, pretty much anyone in a seat of political power. The source claims that their actions carry the heaviest weight, which means they rack up the largest karmic debt. And it argues this all comes down to two main motivations. Now, you might think the first reason is money, right? But the source says, actually, no. The first motivation it points to isn't about getting rich. It's about the sheer intoxicating pleasure of control. That feeling you get from pulling the strings. And check out how specific this gets. We're not talking about some vague, abstract idea of corruption. The source points to really tangible actions, lying to people about a better future, dividing communities along religious lines just to win votes, silencing anyone who speaks out, and, this one's heavy, deliberately keeping the public struggling with bad infrastructure and low wages so they're too tired and stressed to fight back. And to really hammer home the scale of this, the text drops this just staggering ratio. It claims that a tiny group of people, we're talking maybe 5,000 to 10,000 individuals, are directly impacting the lives of 1.5 billion citizens. I mean, that really puts into perspective the immense responsibility and the potential for damage that comes with that kind of power. So what's the karmic price for all this? According to the source, it's not just a slap on the wrist. No way. The text lays out this incredibly severe, multi-generational payback. We're talking chronic sickness in this life, followed by painful deaths and rebirths where you come back as the most vulnerable in society. And on top of that, a future where you're constantly denied what you deserve. It's a vision of complete and total karmic reversal. All right, let's move on to the second motivation the source points to. And this one is, well, a whole lot simpler. After that complex psychological drive for control, we get to something much more basic, good old-fashioned money. And the source gets right into the nuts and bolts of this greed. It's basically a checklist of systematic corruption, right? Huge scams that bleed the system dry, pocketing money that was meant for public welfare, blocking investment in things we all need like hospitals and roads, taking bribes, and even creating laws that just happen to benefit their own businesses. And the text is clear. These aren't victimless crimes. They have direct, painful consequences for everyday people. And this is where the author just cuts through all the noise, all the excuses. The point is, it doesn't matter how you try to justify it. It doesn't matter how you spin it or how many people you manipulate into supporting you. Wrong is still wrong, and it still goes on that karmic ledger. But this isn't just about the politicians at the top. The source broadens its scope here, arguing that this corruption is like a poison that trickles down into other pillars of society. The source really lays this out like a chain of corruption. First, you've got police, right? Taking bribes, creating fake evidence. And the karmic warning here is intense. The text says stealing from the innocent can bring disease and suffering back to your own family. Then you've got business owners, underpaying workers, cutting corners, lying to customers. And the warning there? Yeah, you might make a quick buck, but that karmic rebalancing could mean your entire business suddenly collapses.
Okay, now this is where things get really personal. Because after calling out politicians and police and business leaders, the source pivots and turns its attention to the common person. It asks a really tough question. What's our role in all of this?
And the source makes this incredibly powerful comparison. It points out how people's blood boils over interreligious violence, violence that's often stirred up by those very same politicians. But then there's silence, total silence, when a person, it doesn't matter what their religion is, dies because of a pothole in the road, a pothole that exists because of corruption. It's a really sharp critique of our selective outrage.
So the big takeaway here, according to this text, is that you don't just accumulate karmic debt by doing wrong things. You also rack it up by failing to do right. Just ignoring stuff, saying that's not my problem, letting it spread. The source argues that every time we choose some small materialistic benefit over doing what we know is right, over our dharma, we're just adding to our own future suffering. All right, so we've looked at the politicians, the police, businesses, and even the general public. Now the source ties it all together for its final big picture message about how this whole cosmic accounting system really works. And this is probably the most important point to understand. The source makes it clear. Karma isn't some angry god looking to punish you. It's framed more like a law of nature, a law of equilibrium, just like gravity. It doesn't get mad, it doesn't judge, it just balances. And no one escapes that balancing act.
And the whole text lands on this really powerful call to action. It kind of redefines what it even means to be a good or religious person. It's not about the words you say or the symbols you wear. It's not about what group you claim to belong to. According to this author, the only thing that matters is your actions. It's about choosing responsibility. It's about choosing your conscience.
And so that's the final question this text leaves hanging in the air. It paints a picture of a world where every single choice, the big ones, the small ones, the actions we take and the ones we don't, is being recorded. So it forces you to ask yourself, if all that is being accounted for, what does your ledger look like?